Hey everyone, I'm Danielle Emerson with the Great Lakes Beacon. I am here with Democratic candidate Shri Thanedar. He is a candidate for governor for 2018. He's one of the series of our interviews. And so thanks for coming, Shri. I appreciate it.
Thanks for inviting. Yeah, it's good to be here.
So I guess first question is just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Well, I grew up in India. In a very poor family. I worked through my high school, cleaning offices and janitorial work, and college. Got a bachelor's and a master's degree in India. In 1979, when I was 24 years old, I came to the United States to study primarily, to get my PhD in chemistry. I did that in 1982, and I got my first job in the United States in the state of Michigan, in Ann Arbor, Michigan, at the University of Michigan, where I did more chemical research, making molecules, polymers, plastics, that type of work.
Yeah.
And in '84, I moved out of state because I had a job in St. Louis, Missouri. I worked there as a chemist for 6 years, and then bought a little business, 3-person business. The owner wanted to retire, and so I took over, bought the business for $75,000, taking a little bit of a loan from the bank and loan back from the seller. And I grew that business to about 20 employees in 1996. And in 1996, my children were 4 and 8 years old. And their mother passed away unexpectedly. So I ended up being a single parent, taking care of my 2 children, dealing with my own grief and dealing their grief, and raising them, as well as running a small business, creating jobs. Now, over the years, that business kept growing, and in 2008, the business had grown so much that I had borrowed some money to buy companies all across United States, including a company here in Ypsilanti, Michigan. And our focus was serving small companies that were doing research to develop and innovate new medicine. Yeah, and the company had grown to about 500 employees. Yeah. And then came the recession. And you know, in the last recession of 2008, Michigan suffered more than any other state in the United States. Just like many businesses in Michigan, my business also had trouble during the recession. And the bank from whom I had gotten the loan got impatient, and they put a receiver on all of my businesses. And a day before my home was to be foreclosed, I and my wife put all of our assets in a rental budget truck and started driving. And we started driving at 6 p.m. In the month of September of 2010, not too long ago. And she and I took turns and we drove. We came to West Ann Arbor around 3 a.m., unloaded our stuff. Very next day, I found a small lab, as small as this room, that had also gone out of business during the recession. And I bought the assets for nothing and restarted my business. And that business I grew in Ann Arbor, Michigan, to about 50 employees, average salaries in the $50,000 to $70,000. And that business won many awards, including fastest growing high technology company by Inc. 5000, one of the fastest growth 50 companies to watch in Michigan from the Small Business SBAM, and I also won the Entrepreneur of the Year award from Ernst & Young.
Wow.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Thank you.
So why did you decide to run for governor?
Well, you know, America has given me so much. Michigan has given me so much. You know, I got my first job in Michigan. I was able to do my comeback also in the state of Michigan. And at this stage, you know, when we won this award last year and the business had grown so much, my wife and I felt that we have done good for our family. America has given us so much, and we felt obligated that we give back. You know, I have achieved my American dream, but there are a lot of young people who are struggling.
Yeah.
You know, especially in places like Detroit and all over the state.
Right.
And I want to help them achieve their American dream. I want to become a champion of entrepreneurship, a champion of small business, and because half of the jobs are created by small businesses. And so my focus is going to be, growing our economy, making sure, it's more of an inclusive economy. Currently, the focus has been more towards big corporation welfare. Our governor currently comes from a big corporation, and all we have seen is happening is hundreds of millions of dollars of incentives given to big corporations. And some of these big corporations don't even keep their promise to Michigan. And the jobs are created and the companies then close. So if you look at over the last 8-10 years, the net job growth is almost zero.
Right.
And so my focus is going to be small business. My focus is going to be entrepreneurship and startup. And I want to, make education affordable.
Okay.
I want to especially invest in K-12 education. Our ranking, education ranking has slipped so much over the last 10 years. And I think we need to really invest in our education system. We need to make sure that we provide opportunities for middle school and high school to learn trade skills and learn vocational skills, because not everybody needs to or wants to go to a 4-year college.
Right.
So I want to focus on economy, I want to focus on education, and I want to focus on infrastructure.
Well, you just answered my next question on what
Yeah.
your top 3 policy goals
Yeah.
are. So we will we'll move on to the next one. What would you say makes you different than your opponents?
Well, we have seen politicians make promises to us and nothing gets done. And people of Michigan are tired of the promises not being kept.
Right.
I am a small business owner. I am the only candidate in this race, either party, that has actually created jobs.
Right.
So I come in with a fiscal responsibility. At the same time, we have seen our cities suffer, things like Flint, where thousands of people got poisoned with lead. The current policies where the cities are starved for funds. And when the cities fail, the governor has put emergency managers, and these emergency managers are so focused on cost cutting. And one of the reasons why Flint happened was because of the cost cutting when they switched the water supply. And I'm a chemist. And when I saw that happening, it was such a small, simple thing that they needed to do, which they did not do.
Right.
And now it's going to cost us over $1 billion to fix that problem. So my focus is going to be making sure, our cities are supported. The revenue should not be based on zip codes, but the revenues that state shares with the cities should be based on the needs of the city and the needs of the communities and the people involved. I am going to make Michigan more inclusive. I want to make sure that our economic advancement benefit people at all levels, not just the top few that we have seen in the last 6-7 years. And I want to end for all the corporate welfare that currently is practiced. And I want to shift those dollars more into investing in people, more in investing in human capital, whether that means more affordable education, if that means helping small businesses solve financial issues so that they can grow and create more jobs. But essentially, I want to take that dollars and put it into our infrastructure, whether fixing bridges or building another SULAC.
Right.
Just investing. We need to really invest in Michigan if we are going to have a great future, which I think we should. So if we can invest $1 today, we will get rewards worth $4 5 years down the road. And so I'm going to come into this job and bring my vision of building Michigan so that we can make Michigan work for all.
So you touched on it a little bit, but what would your plan be for ensuring residents in urban centers like Detroit and Flint get a good quality of life? Especially in Detroit, they have foreclosure crisis going on. They also have water shutoffs. Flint, obviously, with the water problems. How would you target helping out those urban centers?
Well, one of the things that I need to focus is public education. If our public education is strong, then our communities are strong. And our revenue base for cities like Detroit is made for, 4 million residents?
Right.
And we have a fraction of that now. So if more people move into cities, the revenue base will increase. And that will help pay for some of the improvements. For families to move into cities, we need to make sure our cities are safe. We need to make sure that we have good transportation for people to get around. We have to make sure that our schools are provide quality education. And as the charter schools have grown, we have seen movement of students from public school into charter school, and that has created a problem for the public schools. Especially now, they have limited resources from the state, but they still have the same infrastructure to support. And I want to make sure that we put more funding into public education, and especially I want to make sure that no private corporation profits from educating our children.
We actually had a question on that, so we reached out to our Facebook folks, and there's a question from Scott Urbanowski. He wanted to know from the candidates, how would you improve charter school accountability?
Good question, Scott. Thank you for asking that. We need to hold the charter school with higher standards. We actually need to hold all schools with higher standards because our school ranking has slipped in a national survey. So not only public schools, but we need to hold charter school at a much higher standard. We need to minimize the amount of testing that goes on. The children spend way too much time on testing. We just need to have one kind of a test once a year, and we need to take all of the bureaucracy out of our education system. We need to respect our teachers. We need to pay them well and fill those vacancies. I think we have about 10,000 or so vacancies in public school currently, and we need to fill those, and we need to make sure that our teachers are respected. Our teachers, sometime I was talking to Judy, a teacher at the Farmington School, and she was telling me about the humiliating treatment sometimes teachers get from the administrators.
Right.
And we need to really provide the resources they need. Many of the teachers are spending money out of their own pocket to bring supplies for school, and that's totally unacceptable. So we need to fund it right. We need to make sure that the charter schools follow the same high standards as we set for our public schools.
Switching gears a little bit, another question we had from our Facebook followers, this came from Danielle Fergan. How can you bring Democrats together in this election? Obviously, we had a bit of a split. There's a growing split in the party. How do you plan on bringing folks together?
Danielle, that's a very good question, and that is a concern of mine too. Today we have 4 candidates running for governor on the Democratic side. And I think we should have a strong primary. It is important that there is a debate. In 2014, the Democratic Party made a mistake of settling too quickly on one candidate. The talk was that we want to minimize any kind of discussions, and we want to save money and be ready for the general election. Mm-hmm. But what that did was that didn't prepare our candidate very well. Mm-hmm. And our candidate did not inspire Michiganders as, we need to do that. So I think we should have a healthy dialogue among the Democrats. But I have pledged that whoever is the Democratic nominee for the governor, and I do believe I am the most qualified candidate for that position, but whoever that candidate is, everyone who's running must support that candidate, and we go in together as one when we face and go in the general election against a very well-oiled Republican machinery. Mm-hmm. So we need to stay together, but we should not settle on a candidate too early. I think we should, and this is good. I appreciate you inviting me here and discussion. There should be discussion of issues. Right. We should look at every candidate, what he or she has a skill set that they bring to this job. Mm-hmm. And I think people of Michigan are looking for something different. The same old political system isn't going to solve the problems that we have. And we need to have a new look at, and I am that candidate, I believe, because I have created jobs, I have run small businesses, I know how to put together teams mm-hmm. and make things happen. Mm-hmm. My focus is to have a vision for a Michigan that would be an envy of the world again. And I want to implement that vision with good planning, hard work, and being very ethical in what I do and being very transparent in what I do.
We're going to kind of bunch these last two questions together here, but you mentioned issues. One, what is your position on prevailing wage, and then the other on single-payer healthcare?
Well, there is an effort to repeal prevailing wage, mm-hmm. And I oppose that. I think prevailing wage is important because that protects unions and union jobs. And so I am for prevailing wage. And I think we need to protect workers' rights in the state of Michigan with the so-called right to work. Workers lost their rights in the state of Michigan, and we need to repeal that.
We need to repeal right to work?
Right to work, yes, okay. Absolutely.
And then single-payer healthcare?
Well, that is an issue that I'm taking a look at. Mm-hmm. Currently what's happening in Washington, D.C. and the Republican healthcare bill is very cruel. Yes. And it's putting so many people out of coverage. And our goal should, the ACA is not perfect and needs work, but the Republican plan isn't really helping us. Mm-hmm. And I think we need to cover more Michiganders under healthcare. And my goal is to see every Michigander is covered under a health plan, and a single payer system would do that. Mm-hmm. And we just need to look at how can we make that financially viable, mm-hmm. Because again, I'm fiscally responsible. Right. And so I want to find ways to make that happen, and I want to make sure that we find a way to pay for it, mm-hmm. and have a single pay system, but I'm all for it. Uh-huh. Yeah.
Well, that's all the time that we have, so I appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming in.
You're welcome. Thanks for inviting.
I appreciate it. Yeah.